Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert alongside Father Joe Grimaldi, and we would like to welcome you to the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. The Father Joe podcast is proudly supported by Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield. The spring savings sales event is going on now at Star Lincoln, and that means additional savings on every Lincoln in stock. Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, they treasure your time. Experience the Star treatment. If you're in the greater Detroit area and you're looking for a new Lincoln, then Star Lincoln is the only answer. Whether you crave a new Lincoln MKC, Lincoln MKX, the classic Lincoln Navigator, or the awesome Lincoln Nautilus, get the Star treatment. You deserve it. Give them a call, drop on by, and you'll see why. They've been in business for decades. Both Father Joe and I are driving the Lincoln MKC, and I love mine. In a hurry, shop online, starlincoln.com. Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield, home of the Star treatment. I noticed, how are you, by the way? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blow right into the podcast.
Oh, why not? I'm doing fine.
Yeah,
thanks.
good. How you feeling?
Yeah.
Feeling your age, are you?
Well, that's true, too, but that's all right.
I'm going to physical therapy these days, trying to get this back pain that I've had worked out. I got to tell you, they throw you around in there, so I'm younger than you. Not by much, but I'm younger. But, boy, you come out of physical therapy, and for a while you feel great. Then a little later on, I'm like, oh, man, what did they do to me? So,
yeah, you have parts that you never knew you had.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, they find them, too.
Yes.
Is my leg supposed to do that? Driving home today, I noticed they're starting to appear, and I'm sure people out there listening in podcast land have noticed this, too. It's a popular thing now to have a yard sign, not unlike a for sale sign, or especially around a primary election or a general election. You will see what they call yard signs with somebody's name on it. They now do that for graduation. Sort of a look at our kid, no, we're over here, look at our kid. Kathy graduated from Marion High School. Bob graduated. Bob is a graduating member of the 2019 Brother Rice, high school. So I started thinking, you and I and a group of friends went to dinner not too long ago, and I was talking to a friend of ours, Bob, and Bob taught at Brother Rice for probably close to 40 years.
Easily.
I think so, yeah. And I think he still dips a toe in the water every once in a while
sure he does,
because he was so involved in track. And so we were talking at the table, and I said to Bob, how many kids now are over at Brother Rice? And I think he mentioned something like 600. So I've got a topic here for us, and I wanted you to address it because you're over at Brother Rice regularly. Once again, you were once the principal. I was wondering, have we reached a baseline now in terms of attendance at Catholic school? Let's start with secondary education, because we know that Catholic colleges do great. But let's talk about high school, secondary education. It's about 1/2 of what it was when I went to Brother Rice. It's about 600 students now. It's about 1,100 plus when you were principal, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you think we've reached the low water mark?
Going back up is going to be very, very difficult, only because the numbers are low. It's not because people don't want to go to certain schools, but because they aren't there. So population is down. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you look, people are not having as many children. Where you used to have anywhere between 4 to 7 or 8 kids in a family. I mean, we had the exception at Brother Rice with 18, the Callahans. But usually between 4, because the reason why that area behind Brother Rice was so popular, it was all those new homes that were built in the 60s, is because there were big families there, see? Well, the big families don't exist anymore. It's rare. So most people will have 2, maybe 3 kids to go to school, and by the time they're in high school. The other thing you find that the same thing is true of the public schools. So it's not just the Catholic schools. You'll find that, even Lhasa High School, I don't think it exists anymore. Huh?
You are correct.
Yeah. And so it's not the same time it was like it was in the 80s, basically. In the 80s, yes. I was principal at the school, and we used to have about 1,100 students at the school. Now, the other thing I want to mention, too, which is interesting, yes, Brother Rice is probably around 600. I'm not sure what it is right now.
600 plus.
Yeah. Now, when numbers are dictated or said about the number of kids in a school, they're not all the same. Sometimes we compare apples and oranges. Some schools give their enrollment that includes 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Right.
Besides the high school years, so that they may have 600 students, but not all high school students, whereas other schools, they just count the high schools because that's all they have. So there are many, many reasons why I think the numbers, it's not that they've reached a bottom level, but it's because that sounds so negative, but I think because the kids aren't there to go anymore. Now,
I think that's one of the reasons. I think it's a big reason, yeah.
It's a very big reason.
But I think there are other reasons.
Yeah, there would be. But the other thing, too, depending on where you live, makes a big difference. When you live in a place like Birmingham and Bloomfield Hills, where the ratings of the high schools are extremely high.
Superb.
Mm-hmm. When people make decisions to go to this school or that school, well, public schools are not so bad, okay? One of the things that traditionally Catholic schools have always been good about is discipline, generally speaking, discipline and academics. And so it doesn't matter anymore whether people are Catholic or not. You'll find that in some parts of the U.S., the Catholic high schools are made up of only 50% Catholics. That's not true on the East Coast or Michigan, which is really part of the East, and so on and so forth. I think you have a much higher percentage of Catholics.
Well, can I say one thing?
Sure.
I'm sure that there was a time where people said, well, we'd love to have you, young man, but you're not a Catholic.
Well, because, there were conferences that dealt with we need to educate the children in religion. And unless we do a good job, we're going to lose them. Huh? And so originally, the grade schools were founded just to keep the religious aspect of their lives alive. At one time, the parishes were asked to establish grade schools so that they would be trained in the Catholic schools. I don't know if that exists anymore, but you're right. There was a time when the Catholic schools were reserved for Catholics. That's not true in the rest of the world. In the rest of the world, if a Catholic school has a terrific reputation, people will send their kids there for education, academics, as well as discipline.
Uniformity as well. I think that it was the Catholic platform, the Catholic school, that insisted on uniforms.
Yeah.
By that I mean actual uniforms.
Okay.
Exact same slacks, white shirt, a tie. The same thing still goes on to this day. Some form of uniform. I think that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a really good thing. And I did find something here, by the way, in terms of elementary schools.
Sure.
Okay? They're the ones that have really seriously been impacted. Since 2009, elementary school enrollment has declined by 28%, especially in the urban dioceses, and 19.4% in the rest of the U.S. So the big hit is in the elementary area, the younger kids. That's where it's really suffering. Last year, in fact, 258 new schools were open, not in Michigan. But at least they're showing new schools are opening. Catholic schools are opening.
Right.
So I'm saying, that's just a little bit of sunlight coming into the room, but that's good. I'm not besmirching in any way, shape, or form the fact that it may have hit its lowest tide. I'm not trying to downplay the fact that
Right.
it may be at its lowest point. In fact, I'm celebrating that if it is, because then it can only go up. And I'm wondering, you look at me like I'm saying something
No,
unusual.
I'm puzzled. But go ahead.
We're showing growth.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think, personally, from what I'm reading and what I've read over the past few days, we may have hit that baseline, that bottom, and we're starting to come back up. And I'm wondering what we can do to jump on and continue to improve those numbers, given what we have now as real-life America. Smaller families, not nearly as many Catholics maybe attending church, being influenced by their own habits. But you also have this opportunity for non-Catholics to attend Catholic schools. So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to put this whole thing into a way of making the Catholic school, Catholic education grow. How can we help it grow? There's
Yeah.
your question.
Yeah, okay. I really can't answer. I don't know enough about it. I
Okay.
do know this much. They ain't there. You can't do much about that. Granted, what you're suggesting, I think, from what I hear, is to try to appeal to the non-Catholic kids.
Not
to
necessarily,
come.
but as an option.
Well, okay. I'm not saying that the schools have stopped doing promotions and trying to build up their public relations. What I am saying is if you look around Birmingham, they aren't there because schools have closed, public as well as others have.
I see what you're saying.
And so that the numbers are not there. We're all vying for the same kids. So it's a matter of if you want to stay alive, you have to do some good public relations. But basically, you have to offer good, solid courses and make known the fact that they are good and they are available for people. Every Catholic school that I know of is trying to do the same thing. They're trying to offer good academics, trying to offer a good background in religion. They're trying to accomplish taking care of the body as well as the soul, if you want. And so we're all trying to do the same thing. But when that pool is small that you're drawing from, that's where it gets difficult.
Totally understand that.
Years ago, you had all sorts of people
course.
you could aim for.
And back then as well, you had a lot of parents saying, no, you are going to Brother Rice.
Right.
My father told me, and I had no issues with it, by the way,
Yeah.
because, well, selfishly, all of my friends were going anyway. And I mean this sincerely. It was difficult for my parents to support 3 kids going to Catholic school. 2
Oh,
sisters
sure.
at Marion and me at Brother Rice. And it was difficult in a lot of ways because we weren't from Birmingham. We were in the Southfield area, which would have been the far south side, if you will, to attend Brother Rice. We didn't quite feel like we had the options like kids have now. In other words, U of D, Catholic Central, Notre Dame. They're all available. A lot of kids in this area are going to U of D, and some are going to CC, more to U of D. But we have many really good high schools in and around Metro Detroit. Most of them going through the same situation, and I assume I'm correct on that. Their numbers are also dwindling, correct?
Yeah, the high schools, public as well as Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that people used to do that I don't think is as important anymore is they sent their kids, especially guys like me, to Brother Rice for an education, but also for the discipline.
Correct.
I don't think that happens anymore. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
I really don't.
Don't you share some of that information with the other teachers? I'm not
Yeah,
trying to start
I
an
just-
argument with you.
No,
but-
I know you're not. No. That's not what I'm getting at. No, that's not something they discuss. I mean,
We looked for trouble. We thought it was funny. I remember being in classrooms, and we would actually take from the Wizard of Oz, Oreo, Rio, Oreo, and we'd all start singing that. And by golly, if a teacher turned around and looked at us, we would shut up quickly. But we were always pushing the envelope, always acting up that much. I talked to a friend of mine at that dinner we were at, and he said,
Sure.
oh, you'd be surprised. They don't act up anymore.
that's what I was going to say. I mean, I don't see that.
That's what I was getting at. More kids were sent to Brother Rice and to Catholic Central, and to U of D, a lot of times in partnership with the discipline, including the fact that you had to wear a uniform instead of your cool jeans.
Yeah. I find them much better behaved.
That's what I'm saying. Much better. Parents don't have to send their kids
much more
for...
interested.
Yes.
And, for example,
yes.
you see literature for college that's available to them. They take it so seriously. In the old days, no. You almost had to force a kid to make sure you know what you want to do.
Thank you. You just made my point. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I feel like Paul Lynde in, what was it? The movie was Bye Bye Birdie.
Yeah.
Where he sings that song, "What's the matter with kids today? You know, why couldn't they be like we were, perfect in every way? What's the matter with kids today?" That's the problem. The kids today are good. They're good kids.
Yeah, they
you
get
made
more
my
serious.
point for me. Back in 1969, 70, 71, 72 through the 80s, we had some trouble in us.
Yeah.
Right? And we needed to be told, hey, knock it off.
Yeah, but we also had kids that chose universities that were
Of
kind
course.
of... But today they seem to be much more interested
That's what I'm saying.
in achieving their goals.
Boy, what happened? That's a good thing. That's a good thing. I'm kidding, of course.
I know what you mean.
But
No,
we all,
no.
when we get together, we don't remember our academic portion of the program as much as we remember the hijinks. We seem to dwell on and laugh a lot about the hijinks, the stuff we thought we got away with, which we didn't. But we had a lot of fun while we were learning as well. And by golly, by gosh, we had some great, great teachers, including you, Brother Kelly, so many really great teachers. Yeah. You couldn't help but get a really good education.
No, and I'm impressed every time I'm there because I see these kids that, wow, I don't think I was ever that serious about which college I was going to go to or whatever the case might be, but they're looking for ways in which they could achieve, and they're pretty serious about that. I'm not saying that they don't fool around. At times they do, you know. This
I hope so.
But generally speaking, not only for that, but also for their religion. This is something that's new to me because during the day, for example, there's a couple of things that happen. One, there's over the PA system, there is a prayer time, which we didn't have.
No, we didn't.
And then later on, there is a time to show your loyalty to the school. The other thing I've noticed, too, which I'm impressed with, the brothers always ended whatever exercise in chapel that they had, and it was a private thing, just the brothers, where one would say, "Live Jesus in our hearts." The people would respond, the brothers would respond forever. The kids do this all the time now, which to me is interesting because that was always something the brothers did in their monastery, in the chapel. But now it's become throughout the school. Very often, coaches will say, "Live Jesus in our hearts," and the kids will respond, "Forever." We never had that in the old days. But there's a sense of religion, there's a sense of academic interest, which I think is great, but it's a surprise to me.
Very much so. It was going to be the last part of the podcast was the religious influence that also comes with a Catholic education. Yeah. And you just basically told me, you sold me, you didn't tell me, you sold me on why, if I did have a son, I would want him to go to Brother Rice. I told you at one point that I think it should be part of the mission, not unlike a funding drive and the various initiatives that the Catholic schools have to raise funds to provide the best education possible for the student. I think there should be some sort of a drive without it being overwhelming, holier than thou, if you will, or look at us, we're Brother Rice. Forget about the other schools. But I think there ought to be some sort of an initiative, second to fundraising, to have a population growth exercise.
Well, related to what you say is one of the things that I've always wanted to be made more public was Brother Rice's academic record, their achievement and students going to the finest schools and people achieving academically in so many different ways. All we ever heard about was the football team, which was fine, but there was more to it than football.
Yeah.
And so consequently, it was really interesting to me when people are making a decision about high schools as well. If he's not an athlete, I don't want him to go to Brother Rice because he won't be able to make it there if he's not an athlete. Well, that's not the reality of the situation. What people see, when they see the image, that's what they go by. And it doesn't matter what the reality is, it's the image. So how you bring that image across to other people, for example, when we have a national merit, I think it's important we boast about that. I think it's important that it goes in the news. No, but they used to always have the score of the football game or the lacrosse or whatever the case might be. Nothing wrong with that, but by the same token, there's another aspect to going to Brother Rice.
Well, fascinating discussion, because you can talk to it from your side, and I can talk to it from my side. As a student, you as a teacher, and a principal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a fascinating discussion, although it's funny because in podcasts, if this were on television and it were a two-camera shoot, it would have been curious to get that shot of you looking at me like, what are you talking about? You seem to not like the fact that I was inferring that it was going down and we'd reached some sort of a deplorable bottom. No, I'm looking for the bright side of the bottom.
All right.
I'm looking for the bright side of everything in every walk, every day of my life.
By now, you know I can't hide my feelings.
I know that. That Italian temper coming out, boy, starts shaking that microphone around, and next thing you know, I got my meters going all over.
No.
Giving me the biggest headache.
Not at all.
All right, that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for joining us on the Father Joe podcast. I'm Ken Calvert along with Father Joe Grimaldi. We'll see you next time.
I look forward to it. Thank you. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.